Hey everybody, this is Ramon Ray, founder of smarthustle.com. Thanks for joining me for another exciting podcast, video, article, depending on how you're seeing this. Maybe you're seeing an IG story, but if you like information like this to help you start and grow your business, that's what we do at smarthustle.com. We inspire and educate small business owners to start and grow their business. If you're hearing the sound of my voice, if you're watching this video, reading this blog post, do me a favor, give it a like, give it a share, tell your grandmother, tell your mother, tell somebody about it, have a comment, do something with it, something you're hearing that you don't like, whisper it to me and quietly tell me. But I'm so glad that you're here today, and let us begin. Anders, I should have done this offline to get the pronunciation of your name, but I like putting my foot in my mouth, so I'm going to go for it here. Anders Bollinger?
Boulanger, it's French.
Boulanger, bonjour.
Yeah.
Anders Boulanger, nice to have you with us today. How are things in your world? I hope you're doing good, and I believe you're in the north of the U.S., which would be called Canada. So welcome.
Yeah, that's right. It's spring break right now, okay. And yet it's actually the coldest it's been in March for us. So it's kind of, the whole coming in like a lamb, going out like a lion. That's what's happening. So, but I'm happy to be here with you.
Absolutely. I love it. And so today, listen, we want to talk about all things, to unpack a bit your story, what you do, how you've done it, but really want to dive into the meat and the time we have. We probably won't go full 30 minutes. We'll see. Whatever you say, we'll go that long, but it's the customer experience. So that's what we're going to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. And before we dive into that, Anders, take a few minutes and unpack us who you are, what you do. I know the name of your company is Engagify. So feel free to take 5 minutes, who you are, but then with the company, what, as Seth Godin would say, who you serve and what problem you solve.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Ramon. So since I was 5 years old, I've been a magician. So I got a Fisher-Price magic set when I was 5 years old, started doing birthday parties when I was like 12 years old, for $5 a pop, that kind of thing. Real great business for a 12-year-old. Paid my way through university, got a physics degree while I was at it. When I graduated, turned professional, started doing magic for fairs, festivals, started doing corporate events. And then years later, I started doing magic at trade shows. So it was this idea that you kind of merge, a message with magic to create something that is memorable, something that is interesting, it has mystique and intrinsically fascinating. So people would watch it and they'd hear the marketing message, and at the same time, you're building a crowd of people around you at this trade show booth. Which
I've been one of those people.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So all of that. It was kind of interesting for me because I love marketing too, right? I love that idea of like getting across that message in a compelling manner. And so we did that for years. And of course, the pandemic happened and things shifted, and there's been no trade shows for the last year. And we went from actually being called the infotainers, meaning we would convey that information in an entertaining way. And I had a team of guys who work with me. And we shifted to Engagify, because we wanted to take those engagement skills that we learned, and I want to say in the streets, but it's really the aisles of trade shows, which are kind of like streets. I did do street performing years ago, but to realize, how do we capture the attention of the prospects, the people that we're meeting with virtually, which is the major piece this year, to really up people's game, because, we talk about an engagement gap happening, right? This idea that the frontline people, the people on the revenue team, whether it's sales and marketing, they might be untrained, never been trained to be engaging. They might be unaware of what maybe they're doing or not doing, and they might be unremarkable in the first place. And on the flip side of this gap, you have your end users, the customers. Okay,
right?
They are busy, distracted, no time, working from home, dogs barking, babies crying, right? They can be like, I always joke that when I'm on a virtual call, I'm like, you could be shopping on Amazon. You're looking at your screen, but maybe, I don't know.
You're like,
Yeah. Well, you get, you get those people with the multiple screens, and they're just like, and they do that thing. So, and I don't know if you've seen The Social Dilemma. It's on Netflix. Okay. And it's about social media platforms, tweaking their algorithms, optimizing the platform to drive engagement, right? To get eyeballs on, and phones are addictive, right? Spiking the dopamine. So that's what we're competing with.
Wow.
And so at Engagify, we're helping sales teams, revenue teams Engagify themselves so that they can kind of compete with those distractions, but win that customer's eyeballs, their attention, And yeah, really deepen connection and command attention is kind of what we're all about. So,
I love that.
so it is about the customer experience,
Yeah.
you know, and we talk about getting better ROI, better return on your interactions.
I love it.
By heightening those.
And help me understand, Anders, the shift that you made before you and your team and your people, your crew, were helping companies primarily at trade shows. And so I understand it, not teaching anything, not having courses, just for hire, we're flying around. And now that online, and hopefully we'll go back, but also you're teaching something and selling something. Is that just so I understand the business model? Because I'm curious.
So yeah, you're right. So initially the infotaining was us standing on a stage presenting information, custom presentations, you know, to drive lead gen. And then we shifted, kind of unpacked, you know, like how did we do this? How did we gather these crowds of people? How did we keep them in the booth for 30 minutes at a time, right? How did we do all this stuff? And then go, okay, we did this, and you know, looking at the neuroscience of it. And I studied that in the first place because, well, we have a money back guarantee. So if people don't come to the booth, we don't get paid and we have to fly ourselves home. This is kind of part of our sales process that, you know, you take down the risk, right? For the customer, and they want to come on board. Well, that also kept us very sharp.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure very sharp.
Right. Because you got a first-time client and you're like, oh boy, I gotta deliver here, right? You know, to win them over. And so my mind was constantly, you know, almost like A/B testing, right? Split testing, how I do things to see how my crowds would react to that. Did they stick around longer? I was able to build them faster? You know, was this compelling? Right. So I was always kind of studying this stuff already. And now what we did was take that, kind of repackage that, and also look through it through the virtual frame. Right. Like how can that apply to virtual? How can we do these things so that we could then, you know, we've codified it or codified it. I don't know. Some people tell us different ways.
Codify, I've heard, but codified will work. And I want to dive into how you've done that. I know two things I think are very important. I think one, I want to dive into some of the tools that you use. I know Zoho is one big tool you use. And then two, I'd love to get into some of the tips. What are things we can learn from you on this interview that we can do to be customer experience? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing some of the challenges, and this is my positioning, but you're not trying to teach people to be Anders. That's virtually impossible as all the experience you have, but to take, hey, I'm doing 1,000 things. If you just do these 3 or 4 things, you could do better at your doing, is what I'm guessing you're helping.
So just
I have one question.
Okay. Yeah.
No, answer that first. Go ahead. To feedback on that.
Well, it just made me think of something. Ramon, we get along great. Like we're like
I love it.
1 mile a minute, right? So one of the things that we've been training some of the teams is, you know, vocal variety, right? Like that just talking, doing our normal thing. This is how I talk, you know, blah, blah, blah. People are going to tune out after a while, right? So I have some exercises where it's kind of like rehearsal techniques that actors would use, where I force people to use a certain archetype. And what was neat about this is that the feedback you get from people is that, like, so to give you the example of the archetypes, Ramon, I would say, okay, you have to be a kindergarten teacher and do your presentation. Give me 1 minute of you being give me 1 minute of you being a coach.
Can we test it now? Can you throw one at me, or will it work?
Well, yeah, sure. Okay. So I mean, and
put me on the spot. If I fail it, be hard on me. Don't hold back.
No. Okay, so I'm just gonna think of okay. Here's one. This is what I call the seducer.
Okay.
So Ramon, give me your like elevator pitch or whatever you want to do. Like just however many seconds you want to take, but you have to seduce me.
Got it. In a business way. Or does it matter?
Yeah. Okay. With the content, you can shift the content a little bit, but seduce me with your
Hey, Anders, I noticed you were walking outside and you had a cup of coffee in your hand. Inside our retail store, we have some jelly-filled, sugar-topped, buttery donuts. Mr. Anders, they would go well with your coffee. And if you buy 2 right now, we'll give you 1 free. I may have messed up on that, but what do you think?
But
I don't know.
Automatically your voice shifted, right? You got softer, you got airier.
Yeah.
You got into this kind of, you were using very sensory specific words when you talked about the donut, right? Like that kind of thing, that you were literally sweet talking me.
So I did pretty good.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yes. So now what happens though is when you take people that, and we deal a lot with tech companies primarily, that are very, this is data, this is it is. If I give you the data, that's all that I need to do is give you the data, right? And to realize that how we say something, carries a lot of weight, pardon me, and is more important than what we say in a lot of ways, right? So, what people then realize all of a sudden is that they're capable of being more things. So I'm not trying to make them into me, like you said. It's when we kind of debrief that exercise, they'll say, wow, I didn't realize I could do that. And it could be okay. Like they thought it was going to be so silly, because what you just did right there, Ramon, might not be great for a whole presentation, but for a little part of it, you may want to go there a little bit. Do you know what I'm saying? Like for that variety, like to give them the ride because we only notice contrast, right? Things that are the same become invisible to us.
Yes.
So, having peaks and valleys within your interactions is going to make it more engaging. So there's a tip already, but anyways.
No, I love it. What are a few more things, Anders? One I'm hearing from this is vocal variety. Variety, those may be the same, but you tell me if they're different.
Yeah, contrast,
what are 2 or 3 more things tips that we can learn today on this? That, hey, listen, if you're that average Joe or Jane, Anders is giving you this quick tip. What are some more things we should know?
So one of the ones that I talk about is play big. And this kind of comes across in a few different ways. So one of them is, taking up space in your screen and giving yourself the chance to kind of show off a little bit more body language. So sometimes, people, when you just have your head framed, you may not be able to fully express yourself. And this is like, I talk with my hands a lot. I'm a visual person. So sometimes if I get in too tight, I'm like, I can't. Give me that.
You're not seeing all this.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Now I feel like I'm free, So having a setup that enables you to fully communicate, right? So that idea of playing big might also mean standing up, okay? For some people, that's going to help them channel energy a little bit, because this webcam and for the most part, when you're speaking to someone with no one around you, like there's someone on a screen, but they're not quite real, right? We don't play up to the energy that we normally would if someone was right there in front of us. So we can come off flat. And one of the examples is I've been doing a lot of virtual trade show booth work for some of my clients. And they'll want me to be the kind of the ambassador. So in the top corner of the screen, I'll pop up and give them the tour of the virtual booth and tell them what's all there. And they say to me, Anders, we want that really peppy. We want it high energy. I'm like, don't you worry. I can do high energy. I got this.
He's like, no, this was just to show you. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I film it and I play it back, and then I go, oh, it's kind of flatter than I thought it was, right? Like the idea that what we put out there is not what's being received, right? And so I usually do this kind of thing where I say, here's where you think you are, Ramon, for delivering energy. Here's where you're actually coming in and they're seeing it, right? So to get where you want it to be, to get here, you actually got to go here, So we talk about like an extra 33% energy, playing big in that sense, so that you just get where you thought you were in the first place,
I love it. So we're going to get to some of the tools you're using, Anders. What's a third thing that we should do? We have a vocal variety, which is something people have to learn. You can talk to Anders more about that later. We have about playing big. What's a third tip? Third thing you'd tell people?
You know what? This is like a pet peeve for me. Okay. and I think it is for everyone. And is eye contact with the camera.
Yes.
And you're doing a great job of it, by the way, Ramon. So you've trained yourself, I can tell. So I actually interviewed the creator of the Center Cam. On a blog, like a LinkedIn Live kind of thing, and on my blog. And it's one of these cameras that hangs in the middle of your screen, and it's tiny. So you just look at your screen, because we're naturally wired to look at the person's face, and that's why everyone's looking down the screen. But here's the problem, is that if I look down on my screen, you look down into another screen, and everyone's looking down on the screen, no one's getting eye contact, no one's feeling the connection that they want, or they need, or they crave. And also, if you're in a sales position, right, customer experience, what happens when people avoid eye contact? You don't trust them.
That's right.
Because
they're awkward. I'm like talking to you like this.
Seem shifty, right? Yeah. So So this idea is train yourself to look at the camera. So a couple tips for this. One of them, I'm looking around because I usually grab a Post-it note for this,
Yep.
is that this is a simple low-tech reminder is you grab yourself a Post-it note and you tear yourself like a little arrow, basically. If you want, you can cut it with scissors. It's probably better, but you know what? I like doing this on the fly. So, and you've got the little sticky part at the top there, right? And so you take that and you stick it to the bottom of your camera right there. And so that when you're looking around, that thing just reminds you to look up at the camera. So you can train yourself to look at the camera, or you can do some of these other hacks like that center cam. Like there's also a thing called the plexi cam, which is like a clear plastic. Do you have that?
Yeah, I don't have it, but I saw it.
Okay. So there's some stuff coming out because people are realizing, and that center cam creator, Ian, he showed me, or well, the reason he came up with the idea is that he's in social work. And he realized that this kind of like deep work with people that is, you know, could be heavy, could be all kinds of stuff, to create that support and connection they needed. It just wasn't hacking it. So, so this is some of those, you know, ways of doing that. So that eye contact thing, like, I mean, I feel like some people go, well, I want to see them. I want to read that body language. It's like, you know what, you can kind of still do that out of the corner of your eye.
Right.
But at least take one for the team, make them feel connected.
That's right.
Even if you feel disconnected, we're talking about customer experience. We're talking about how people perceive you. That's what's important on that side of things.
No, for sure. That's amazing, Anderson. It's amazing. You definitely had hands of a gentleman who's held a lot of stuff in his hands. My son was an illusionist magician. So when I see you even rip that, I'm like, those are the hands of a guy who's used his hands, you know,
So my wife always says that I have pinkies that shoot out at weird angles, which are kind of like, it's magic hands. You know, my wife said, oh, you're doing magic hands. It's like, I don't even think about it now, but that's right. So it's funny you noticed that. That's great.
Hey, we are a craft. My daughter calls me an FBI agent because when I stand, I usually stand. I rarely do put my hands in my pocket. It just just we're used to stagecraft. Just it doesn't look good. So, but let's talk about some of the tools that we can use for this. I know one thing that's very important to you has been using Zoho, a variety of things. It could be Zoho One, but you correct me, Zoho, to help grow your business, it seems. Tell us about that, Anders. We have the aspect of the, whatever you want to call it, the mindset or things we can do for customer experience, but I think it also has to be managed. And there's a variety of things that means to different people. What does it mean for Engagify, and how have you used some tools to deliver better experience to your customers or your business?
Yeah. So Zoho One, I've been a Zoho, before I went to Zoho, period, I was on a legacy software that was just, not cutting it. And I started making a mind map for myself. I'm big into mind mapping. And I was like, I mind map, like, what is the perfect CRM for me? Right. And it had all these criteria. And, I tried and tested out a lot of different CRMs. And then I finally came to Zoho. And I was like, hey, this is good. And it's like, and for reasonable price, I could have the enterprise level and I could do the automations and the workflows. And so that kind of thing, is kind of what got me in there. And then I went to CRM Plus, which was like, oh, I got 6, I forget, it was 6 or 7 or however many apps. And then Zoho One almost seemed too good to be true. And I was like, I had to like phone them, like, wait a second, I'm going to save money and get like 40 plus apps or something.
I can imagine Anders like, grandfather me in because I found the error, but everybody else charge them the right price, please.
So then I got in there and then, oh man, like it's just, there's a lot. And it's like, don't get overwhelmed by it, but it's just, I was, I'm deep into the CRM, and locally, I kind of became a little bit of a Zoho guru, right? So the business contacts I had, they all switched to Zoho and then would lean on me, and, I'd show them how to do things. And so I just love the ability to manage what, know where everyone's at, continually be on top of things like your normal CRM stuff, but then having the integration and having them all, having campaigns, tightly integrated in with CRM. So, what newsletters they're getting, and then the analytics thing. Like, I don't think of myself as a nerd, but I'm a nerd about this, Ramon. Like, because like to be able to measure all kinds of things and to throw up these dashboards and dial in, like so many companies cannot calculate their customer lifetime value.
CAC and customer lifetime and ROI.
Exactly. So to be able to do all of that and just have that at your fingertips, your closing percentage, your how long your sales cycle
Yes.
is, any of that kind of stuff for new and existing customers, like just diving into that. That knowledge is power, and
Yes.
apply it in your business. And so, yeah. So anyways, I use quite a few applications from Zoho One, and they've just enabled us to scale, because part of the issue too is you, as a business owner, right? Especially if you're a small business owner or a solopreneur, perhaps, there's a point where you're going to hit the ceiling if you don't have the right tools in place. And I can't remember who said this, and you might be able to pull this out, Ramon, is, what would your business look like if it was 10 times bigger, right? Asking yourself that question, and what would you have to have in place? That's why you need to get those tools like Zoho in place, so that you don't hit the ceiling on that side of your business, right?
No, for sure. And I'm curious, Anders, where did you make this shift? I always like to learn from others. Is that I'm going to make some broad assumptions, but correct me if the assumptions don't apply at all. I'm sure they apply a little, maybe. From freelancer, from Anders, using spreadsheets, sticky notes, keep it in your memory, emailing yourself stuff. I've interviewed thousands of people, so these are usually common things they're doing, to where you were like, and I'm just going to pull one of my favorite books. It's Gino Wickman's Traction, or books like that are just about building your team and leadership. It seems like you're on that journey or going there. Where did you make that shift? If I'm right, from not all that I'm saying right now, setting this up is wrong, so I don't mind doing that. But if I'm on the right track, where did you make that journey? Because I think part of this is the tools, and you mentioned one of your tools you're using is Zoho One, great, but there seems that your mind have had to shift to knowing you needed to up level, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, I even remember in university when I was still getting my physics degree, trying out, there was I can't remember what it was called, but it was a CRM for magicians specifically that would help you print out your contracts, all this stuff. Not very customizable, but I started trying to use that because I think it kind of made me feel like a real business, right? Like it was kind of like,
everybody has a reason.
I need this, and instead of making things in Microsoft Word, each contract at a time and that sort of thing. I was never actually one to be on spreadsheets. In fact, I learned spreadsheets like late in life, for different things. But yeah, so I kind of was an early adopter on CRMs, but fully harnessing it and automations. I love time saving things,
hacks and etc.
Yes, like there's something, and again, here's my nerdism, is that anything that makes things more slick, I'm just like, I love that, right? So, I mean, from a customer experience point of view, for me, right? When Zoho makes things easy and makes things slick, that's like good. And then how I can make my customer's journey easier on me, easier on them. You're right. Less clicks, less friction, as my son says, and others say, less friction. I think it's very powerful as well. But no, I think the aspect that's amazing, Anders, how you are, you deliver a better customer experience for your clients. Today, Engagify, and we'll have links and all that, helps other people, to be more engaging and et cetera. And then 3, you're using tools to also deliver better customer experience to your own clients. So I think I said that about right, if that makes sense, what I'm picking up from today. Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, that's, I have a coach and he talks about moments of truth, right? Like winning moments of truth with your customer, right? You're either building trust or losing trust, right? And so we kind of, at Engagify, we kind of tweak it. What are those moments of engagement, right? How do we elevate those moments? But yeah, you have to you're either on point or off point. And so that customer experience has to be front and center to have that kind of commercial excellence, to go and capture the value that you can in the marketplace. And so that's what we're doing at Engagify in terms of the interactions, helping companies do that. But we all need to do that in terms of, creating that customer experience that
for sure want. And I know many people are listening to this, need your services. Usually I don't do this, not in a bad way or not. It's just, this is very contextual. Obviously, look up Anders, Engagify. We'll have the show notes. Look him up on LinkedIn or share a variety of platforms and check out his courses, check out what he's doing. And also he happens to be a great, as he said, Zoholics guy, using Zoho as a tool to help him in his business. But Anders, Boulanger, did I get that right?
That's pretty good.
What you say it?
Boulanger, yeah.
Boulanger. Okay, yeah, Boulanger. Boulanger. I have that the American accent in there. But thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate it. And I wish we had a 3-hour conversation. Or maybe we'll do that one day.
We'd be exhausted though, Ramon, at the end of that. You know. Okay.
I think
Thanks
with
for having.
you, I wouldn't. You and I are vibing pretty cool. I could see more of that. But everybody, again, thanks for joining me and Anders here at another smarthustle.com podcast discussion article. Please do check out what Anders is doing at Engagify. We'll have all the details in the show notes. And definitely you can see the power of automation, the power of CRM. So glad to have this conversation. And thank you, Anders, for being a great Zoho customer and sharing with us the power of Zoho as well. And this is Ramon Ray, founder of smarthustle.com. Please share, please like, please comment. Let us know that you're listening. Don't leave Anders lonely. This is Ramon Ray. Thanks so much.